G'day folks, you're listening to the podcast It's the Whisky Talking with Harrie and Craig. In this podcast we take a light-hearted look at our current favourite whisky, things that have got us thinking lately, other things that just pop into our heads while we're talking, and matters that have slowly taken on more significance as we ease our way into the last third of our lives. So kick back, pour yourself a pleasing beverage, and join us on our search for wisdom, thinly disguised as mates having a bit of a banter. G'day, Harrie.
G'day, Craig. How are you?
Good, mate. How are you?
Good.
I see you've got a new drink for us.
Yes, mate. I've got a Japanese whisky, recently provided by a Japanese friend of ours who came across and visited us for a week or so when, it's probably a couple of months ago now. But so you're lucky there's any left because I've been savouring it, and there's a little bit left there for us anyway. All right, so the whiskey it's the Suntory Royal Blended Japanese Whisky. It's a limited edition, the Sakura Cherry Blossom label. Now, it's interesting because on two different websites, it seems to retail here in Australia for about $199, and another site says it's $1,300. Wow. I questioned that sushi on this and said to him, well, mate, I know you like me, but this is crazy. $1,300. Oh, no, I didn't. And I said, well, your wife Akane was complaining about flying economy, and now I can see why if you spent $1,300 on a bottle of whiskey. But he confirms no, that wasn't the case, and it's probably closer to the $199. So it's rather strange that you can have such a huge differential between the same. And I checked to see if it's the same whiskey. Yes, it's the same whiskey, it's the same label, everything's the same. So I wouldn't suggest, if you want to buy this whiskey, I wouldn't spend $1,300 on it. It is a lovely whiskey, but I wouldn't spend $1,300 on it. Now the tasting notes, not as wanky as some of them. It's first produced in 1960 to celebrate Suntory's 60th anniversary. Royal was the personal masterpiece of founder and legendary master blender Shinjiro Tori. It is a premium blend that incorporates selected malt and grain whiskies from Suntory's three flagship distilleries. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce all of them, but they have three distilleries. The detailed tasting notes for this, 43% ABV, colour medium gold with a soft amber hue. Tasting notes. Nose, aroma, very welcoming and rich. It opens with sweet notes of freshly baked chocolate chip cookies. That got me there. Melted butter and honeyed tea. This is balanced by dried fruits, orchard fruits like red apples, and a distinct, fragrant, herbal, incense quality brought on by Mitsunara oak. Palate, the taste, smooth, round, and slightly creamy. Interesting for a whiskey. You'll taste distinct flavours of vanilla pudding, caramel, and ripe banana, mixed with green apple and pear. A unique layer of toasted almonds and a subtle hint of red bell peppers adds complexity. I don't know, I want red bell peppers in my whiskey, but anyway. Finish, medium to long. It wraps up with a gentle, lingering warmth featuring light baking spices, a touch of cocoa, and a signature dry, woody sweetness of the Mitsunara oak. Now, they've also got a suggested pro tip to enjoy this whiskey. It says, while it drinks beautifully neat on a large rock, which is what we've got here at the moment, I assume rock of ice.
A rock in your glass, you'd have to sit on a rock.
No. Oh, yeah, that's right, exactly. Probably not. I can't see that's going to change the taste, but anyway. Suntory Royal excels when served the Mitsuwari style, which is mixed with cold water and plenty of ice, whereas a premium highball with sparkling water, which beautifully opens up its delicate floral and fruit notes. And I do note that when we're in Japan, the Japanese do enjoy drinking their whiskies with sparkling water or soda water in a tall highball glass. I tend to enjoy it that way as well, but I don't use my good whiskies in it. When sushi comes over, I give him my crap whiskies when I put it with soda water, much to his chagrin. But
you probably think you're being really tight about
it. I don't. No, then I'll drink his. But I'll drink it neat. He's not a big fan. I mean, I don't think Japanese, as he's a sample of one, I don't think they drink a lot of neat whiskies. They have to have it with soda water or water.
Wow. Well, it's very
taste.
nice, very delicious, and typically, as with at least in my experience with Japanese whiskies, they're always a very refined taste.
Like eating Japanese.
I mean, very different to, say, the peaty Scottish ones, where it's very regional, and different distillers have quite characteristic tastes. I mean, I'm very inexperienced, but I could say this would come from any of many Japanese distillers.
Well, it is, and I think that's just
style.
I think that's typical of Japanese and their preparation of food, and obviously their whiskies. It's always very, very refined.
Yep.
And I think it's nice. I did read somewhere else saying there was a suggested peatiness about it. I'm yet to taste that, but I definitely can't taste red peppers. But it is very, very enjoyable, and now I'm glad you got to try some because you want to get any more.
Yes, thanks for saying that.
No, I won't drink any more. We'll save it later.
So a couple of things that occurred to me over the little while since we last saw each other. One was an interesting story. So the twins, they're about 18 months old at the moment, and they're getting up and about, and they've got these little push bikes. So ones that they just sit on and use their feet on the ground and push themselves around.
Yeah, Addie's got the same.
Yeah, and of course they have the inevitable stacks, and Andy, who I think is the daredevil of the two, he went up this little ramp and then went off the ramp, over the ramp. And he ended up with a big scratch on his face, and he looked pretty sad and sorry for himself. But I mean, the story isn't so much about that. It's more about when Nick, my wife, and I had a conversation about it later. We started talking about how whenever we hear about someone stubbing their toe or scraping their knee on asphalt or concrete, we immediately feel it in our bones.
Totally.
If, so after so many years, we can remember exactly what that felt like as a kid to have done it like that. And it's such an extraordinary feeling to have that come rushing back to you.
Especially when people say, it's just a graze. And the images that conjures up in my mind is not just a graze.
No, you have to pick out the little bits of asphalt and there's blood everywhere, it sticks to your clothes.
And once it starts healing up, you can't bend your knee because it so cracks it all.
Yeah, so it's an extraordinary thing. I suppose it's just yet another survival mechanism for us, isn't it? Once you hurt yourself like that, you don't want to be doing it again. So
no.
The memory hopefully will prevent you doing it again.
I think I'd much prefer to get a cut than a graze. A graze is like thousands of little cuts.
No. And the other thing I wanted to talk about, very different story. I was talking to my dad the other day, and so he's of an age, well, he has been for a while now, of an age where his contemporaries are starting to drop off to the next stage. And he was telling me the other day that he'd just in that last week or so lost two of his friends. One was quite a shock, the other had been a long illness. But it got me thinking, because I know for him, one of the friends was at one stage very keen on his wines, had a very extensive wine cellar, and he and Dad would swap notes about different wines. And it got me thinking about how when you lose a friend, or I suppose a relative, either to death or to some other thing, maybe you've fallen out or whatever, it often means you've lost someone with whom you've got a common interest or many common interests. And then you must get to the point where you think, okay, well, who do I talk to about that now? So, for instance, my dad liked talking wine with that guy, and now he doesn't have him anymore. You can't ring him up and say, I found this really good new wine. And I thought, that's a really sad part of life, isn't it? That you develop these common interests with people, and then they disappear for whatever reason, or you do, and suddenly that avenue's gone. And you either have to put up with that or try and find someone else. But it's just it's not just losing a person; it's losing all those sorts of connections as well.
Well, I did notice it for a long time with when Dad died, and I used to, not realising that I did it, but I mean, we had, as you know, we had mobile phones in our cars way back when they first started, and I know there was often times I'd be driving home from work and I'd dial his number just to talk about whatever had happened during the day. Or else, not that Dad and I were really close. We became closer in the later years, but he was always, well, the go-to person for to ask questions, things that a little bit abstract or a bit out there or required some sort of logic. He was the one I'd go to. And in fact, another sad story is that just recently, 2 weeks ago, I lost my uncle, and Stephen, my brother, and I used to always joke that if ever we were in a game show, he was our phone a friend. Uncle Les knew everything about everything, and if he didn't, he was smart enough to, if you gave him a word, we could pick up a dictionary and pick any word out of the dictionary, and he'd be able to say what the definition was. If he didn't know the word, he'd be smart enough to work out the Latin or Greek root of the word, and he would say, well, the roots of this, and it would... The word would probably mean something like this, and he'd be spot on every single time.
Wow.
Very, very, very intelligent man. Very dry sense of humour, and I think Dad and him will be having ongoing conversations from this day on. Yeah, debates to this day on. But yes, I do agree. You know, there are... And sometimes you don't even realise that person was your person. You know, like you say, when they have a common interest with someone, and used to take it for granted until that person's not there, and then there's a hole. You're missing that thing. And what do you do? Like you say, is that an interest that now just withers up and dies with the person, or do you continue with that and try to find some other sounding board? And you may or may never find somebody who did as good a job as that person.
Yeah, so a good lesson there. Appreciate those people while they're here.
Most definitely.
So you've been learning to appreciate something new over the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, we took the caravan for a bit of a drive. I keep saying 3 weeks. Trace keeps telling me it was 18 days, but it was 3 weeks. I chose not to go back to work after day 18, and I kept the full 3 weeks off, which that in itself was a holiday. I mean, there's a lot of... When you're driving caravans in northwestern Australia, there's a lot of red dust and a lot of dirt, which
you bring back a lot of stuff.
You spend days and days cleaning it and trying to get the dust out and off the caravan and car. But yeah, that was good. It was interesting. I think Tracy's identified a long time ago that she's not a big fan of four-wheel driving, and there was a couple of times where we're going through some stuff with the caravan, and she nearly bit her hand off, and that was literal, not figurative. She had these huge bite marks in her own hand because there was one sort of just bump I think we hit, and she must have had a hand on her mouth and just bit her hand. So she does suffer, I think, anxiety probably with that type of off-road stuff, especially with the caravan on the back. She was concerned about it, and with a new car. I hadn't driven the car much before. We only just picked it up before we left, and the new caravan and new roads and everything else. So she was a little bit anxious about that. And I think we had probably, what was it, five stops, and I think 5 or 6 stops, but all but 2 were stations. And it was, look, I enjoyed the stations. I don't know I'll be doing many stations again. Stations, I think, are great for... They're not like you think. They're not like dude ranches in America where there's cows everywhere. You don't even see the cows. And a lot of these stations, fortunately, have discovered campers and caravanners as an additional income stream, which has been fantastic for them. They set up, camp kitchens and toilets and everything else. A lot of them without power, obviously, or no water. But you don't see any, as I say, livestock or anything else. That's because you normally buy the homesteads, so you see basically dirt and outbuildings and stuff. But unless most of the stations, some of them are on coastal, some of them aren't, but I think people that love to fish, love to surf, that's an attraction for them, the stations, because they spend all day surfing or fishing and come back and just collapse, and it doesn't matter where you stay. I think for us, we're probably more the RAC, there's a plug there, RAC Caravan Park caravanners. That's what we're going to be. I don't care if we have power and water. That doesn't really worry me. Every now and then to have power and water is good, because we came back with more washing than I think it was ever possible to have. Because we couldn't wash for the last few times as far as the washing machine in the caravan again, first world problem. But yeah, so it was wonderful, and it was nice. The thing we weren't really prepared for was the flies. The flies were amazing. When the flies die off and then or go to sleep in the end of the day, they're taken over by moths. You couldn't leave your glass of red wine out without getting filled with moths. Sure. So dragonflies, lots of dragonflies. Dragonflies are harmless and they don't get near you, and they're beautiful to watch. But yeah, so it was a wonderful trip, and I think just the fact it was 3 weeks away for the first time was good. I'm looking forward to doing more little trips, but also more long trips as well.
Yeah, sounds fantastic. Very jealous. I'm a few stages behind you. I just picked up a a new ute myself.
Yeah, you joined the Ute boys.
Yeah, Ute boys, and so now it's I am caravan ready,
Good.
but don't have a caravan.
Oh, well, that's fine, mate.
Well, that's the highlight,
You're halfway there. I did the other way around. I had the Ute, then got the caravan and realised that after we bought the caravan that the Ute wasn't able to tow the caravan after we'd already towed it several trips. So I had to go out and buy another Ute, but I've sold the other one 2 days ago, so thank goodness.
Good. All right, well, we've got a really good special guest on today. We have Doctor John Forbes, who is a psychologist, a clinical psychologist, and he has a practice here in Perth. And I've known John for many, many years. I first met him when he started studying psychology. Not when he started psychology, but when he was doing his honours degree. I was his supervisor, and then I went on and supervised his PhD. And we've kept in contact since, and I mean, he's a couple of years older than we are, but I do know that he's dealt with a lot of people of our age, and I wanted to talk to him about some of the stories he's heard and some of the advice that he's given people, and I think he's got some great things to say. So let's have a listen. Our special guest today is Dr. John Forbes. John is a clinical psychologist. Full disclosure, when he undertook his PhD research project at Edith Cowan University quite a few years ago, I was his supervisor. Since then, he has been running his own psychology practice. G'day, John. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Craig. Good to see you.
And you. And thank you so much. This is the first guest who's provided us with a whiskey. And John today has brought in a fantastic Tamdhu Speyside single malt Scotch whisky, 12 years old. And I'll put the details up on the Instagram and Facebook post when this comes out. But it's a lovely whiskey. It's a very full-bodied one. As with all of these whiskies, they advertise quite a lot on the side as to what to expect. And we've just been discussing whether or not we have noticed them all. Well, haven't noticed them all, but we're hoping some of them will come through as we take a few sips.
Yeah, long on the palate.
Yes, hopefully our voices sound very smooth during this interview.
Absolutely.
So, John, I know you've had quite a varied work life. I wonder if you could give us a summary of the sort of work you did before you started studying psychology.
Before I figured out what to do when I grew up.
Yes. You figured that out. That's good.
No, not quite. No. Oddly enough, I actually did want to study psychology straight out of high school. But I had one of those tender father-son moments where he said, don't study bullshit like that. Go and get a proper job. And I did. So I got into commerce at UWA, which, it seemed like it was as good as anything else. I wasn't really moved to enrol. And that led me down the path of becoming an accountant. I absolutely hated studying commerce. And I got to the point where I just couldn't keep going full time. It was killing me. Yep. So I just worked my way down St George's Terrace and applied for jobs everywhere. And they gave me a job at what became the Office of the Auditor General. It was the audit department back in those days. And went on to become a certified practicing accountant, which I technically still am.
Okay.
And then I had a bit of an epiphany when they put me on an executive development course at some point, and they gave me a whole bunch of psychological tests along with a few other people from the office. And they gathered us all together, and we're in an empty floor on one of the buildings in Perth. And they said, we're going to do something here just to illustrate what we found from these psychological profiles. And they got, I think it was 6 or 7 people, and they said, right, you lot, go and stand in that corner. And then they picked another guy out and said, okay, you stand in the middle of the floor. And John, you go and stand in the other corner, but we want you to pretend that he's about 3 blocks away. Because he's not like the rest of you. And they used it to illustrate how you need a diversity of opinions. And then they said something along the lines of, So we're going to guess that you all think that John is just weird and off with the theories. And John, you think they're all just rigid thinkers who are incapable of independent thought. I was going, yep.
So had they separated you on the basis of your test scores?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. Just to make the point that, we need more diversity in thinking. And around about the same time, I got interested in computing. So I went to Curtin and did a degree in computing. And that led me down the path of becoming an information systems auditor. And I did I was the IT manager at the Office of the Auditor General and did a few other bits and pieces, and it prompted my love of computing. But I absolutely loved studying it. Mm. And it just got me thinking, okay, so this is what study is supposed to be like. And then I thought, okay, do I actually want to do this job for another 30 years? Mm. Or do I take a few years out, study something, and then wind up doing something that I like for the rest of my working life? Yep. And I just decided to start studying psych. Obviously, I came to ECU, and I absolutely loved it from day one. It was like the best thing I'd ever done. I think if I could have stayed here studying forever, I would have. So I then transformed into a psychologist. And I was lucky. I was seconded for WA Police, and they were really, really supportive of me. It was actually a great place to work, despite what some people might think. And they actually just shifted me from the position that I had at the time, which was the assistant director of a place called the Management Audit Unit, and put me in charge of health and welfare services. So it let me sort of grow my knowledge of how to support people and things like that.
Yeah, right.
And then moved off to, it was the Osborne General Practice Network for a little while. I was the mental health program manager, and then I set up my own practice, which is where I've been ever since.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing that in your psychology practice, you see clients with a range of different issues. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yes.
Can you give us an overview of the types of things people present with, just generally? I mean, you don't have to mention anyone specifically, but what sorts of things do you deal with on a regular week?
I had expected to see lots of people with depression, which I do, but I was shocked at how many people experience anxiety in all of its forms. That just has been epidemic in the population from my perspective from day one. People are just so anxious about so many things. And when that's combined with something else I see often, which is a negative self-concept and low self-esteem, that's a pretty toxic combination.
So they're worried and also feel incapable of dealing with things.
Yeah. And of course, whatever is happening is all their fault. And it takes a lot of effort on their part just to do what I would consider some basic valuing of your own life. Yeah.
So have you helped people deal with transition points in their lives, such as retirement and changing work for other roles?
Yes. Yeah. I see a lot of men in their 50s and 60s who, I guess, circumstances punch them in the face. They realise that they've got less in front of them than they have behind them, and that brings with it a huge number of challenges. And there's a lot of people who just aren't prepared for middle life and later life, let alone retirement. And there seems to be a big spike in separations and divorces in people's 50s and 60s. And that compromises their ability to actually have a good quality retirement very often. And at the moment, I can think of 2 or 3 clients off the top of my head who are being forced to live under the same roof for an extended period of time because it's just impossible to move out in Perth.
Yeah, move out and start again.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would really put a dent into your superannuation, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So do you think these sorts of issues are prevalent amongst those in the latter third of their lives, or is it only because you're seeing some, but out there, do you think it's quite prevalent?
I think it's more prevalent than people probably think. The sort of, I guess the sort of groups that you and I would normally deal with have had, a long working life and stability in their employment and things like that. But a lot of people haven't had that for a whole bunch of different reasons. And I don't think anyone really gives any thought to how they want life to turn out. I've coined a phrase that I call, probably a bit wankily, a socio-cultural imperative.
Please explain.
Well, to be considered a member of a society or a culture, you have to live life in pretty well the same way everyone else does. And if you don't, then you tend to be ostracised, I think. You're not considered to be a member of the society or culture. And our culture, which is broadly Western culture, but I think it's especially bad in WA, says very clearly that once you're born, you must get an education, you must then find a job, you must then find a partner, you must then have children, you must then get a better job, a bigger house, a second car, 3 investment properties, a boat, plane, helicopter, and just before you die, you can do whatever you want. But no one ever gives any thought to that, and they just expect it to work out. And then they come careering toward retirement, and they come and see me, and very often they're angry. They feel as though they've been cheated by life, I think, because they'd expected it all to work out, and it hasn't.
So when you say work out, you mean that they've obtained all that, or that
they'd be happy.
So they've obtained it, but they're not happy?
They're not happy.
Or they're not happy because they haven't obtained it?
A bit of both, but when they're not happy, it depends, I think, on the circumstances later in life, such as separations and things like that. But lots of people just expect that they will be happy in retirement, and they don't know what to do. And I've asked people, what makes you happy? And heartbreakingly, they very often say, I just don't know. I don't know what makes me happy. I've always, kept a job, worked hard, looked after the kids, raised a family and all that sort of thing. And they had really expected it to just work out.
Wow. So it's almost like, get all the stuff and happiness will be yours.
Yeah, exactly. But at the end of the day, however you earn your money is just how you get the resources you need to live the life you want. And I know you've got to pay off the mortgage and all that sort of thing. But people just don't do that. They don't know what makes them happy. And then I say to them, well, just go and do anything then. We need to go exploring. So learn how to draw, learn how to play the piano, learn German. And they don't want to do that because they're anxious about it. They want to guarantee that it's going to work. There are no guarantees, but the point is you go and try and you'll see what makes you a bit happier at least and engage with life.
And how successful are those strategies, do you think?
It takes a bit to overcome the inertia, and I think the biggest issue is they really do want a guarantee that whatever they do is going to work. But they kind of miss the point that life is experiences, and you need to just go and do stuff, and it doesn't really matter. I mean, the analogy I say is, have you ever been skydiving? They go, no. You don't really know whether you would like skydiving. You probably think you wouldn't, but you never know. And I use the analogy of a student who was here, who shall remain nameless, who thought that she didn't like skydiving and went and did it and absolutely loved it. So, even if you go and do it and you don't like it, that's still valuable information. So we'll steer you away from adventure sports and go down the macrame path or something like that.
Yeah. Right. So on the podcast, we've considered a range of things that might affect how someone feels about stopping work. For example, things like someone's work identity and how that might change when they're no longer working. Retirement advice from the workplace beforehand, pre-planning, successful and unsuccessful exemplars, role conflict at home. Do you have any thoughts on how impactful these factors or anything else are in creating problems for people when they move into retirement?
I think all of those are very valid, but the point is that people don't do them. from my perspective. If you prepare and you really think about it, I think you've got a pretty good chance of having it work out. Because, again, from a clinical perspective, you're invested in your own life. You're actually being an active agent in those sorts of things. And I guess the people I've seen who have been successful in retirement are people who've managed to find some sort of meaning and purpose to day-to-day life. Because, okay, you probably want to take a year or two off and not do very much and just practice your golf. But after a while, I think that wears a bit thin. And so the more successful ones I've seen do things, they find things to volunteer for, a whole range of different areas, or they do learn new things, or they go travelling with purpose. So I think there's a lot to be said for a bucket list and actually working your way through it and going, yes, I've done that, I've been there, seen that, and that sort of thing.
Yep. Okay. So someone's social connections can change as they stop working. Have you noticed any impact of these sorts of changes?
Yeah, definitely. People who, I guess, the social convoy that we have ends abruptly when we finish work very often. Because even though you've worked with people for many years and you get on well with them, I don't think it often survives the transition to retirement or even another job along the way, to be honest. I mean, I've worked at lots of places and there are probably only one or two people that I still keep in touch with that I used to work with. And so I think it's critically important that people go off and they find more social groups, join clubs, things like that. But, go and do the things that you like, and then you'll find other people who like to do them, and then you've at least got something in common with them.
Yeah, right.
But, there's certainly plenty of examples of increased conflict where all of a sudden the man is home all the time and the woman just finds him very, very irritating and she says, go and find something to do because I don't want you around here that much.
Yes, this is a common theme we hear from lots of people. So any thoughts on risk factors in retirement for the development of psychological issues? I mean, some of the other psychological issues you were talking about, like anxiety or depression.
Yes, but I think it's linked more to finding a sense of purpose and meaning than anything else.
Yep.
If you don't do that and you just hope things will be okay or hope things will work out or expect that they will, because retirement has always been dangled in front of you as this magical time, that's what we work for at the end of the day. We work so that we can retire. And I think, a lot of people have enough resources to be able to retire well financially, but, without that thought to what they can actually do, they can fall in a hole. And that would, there's certainly an increased incidence of depression, I think, in people who don't successfully make that transition.
Yeah.
The anxiety, I think, has been there all along.
Yeah.
And that especially comes out, I think, as anger in older men in particular. It's basically the fight or flight response, and I think the fight part tends to come out as anger and irritability, and the flight part comes out as avoidance and withdrawal. So, and then you get caught up in something called kick the cat syndrome. So you've seen those old cartoons, you may not have, you probably know hold on, Craig. But those old American cartoons from the late 50s, early 60s, set in suburban USA. And Dad's had a bad day at work and he comes steaming down the driveway, throws the door open and kicks the cat.
Yep.
So we take out our frustrations on safe relationships, which is
the cat.
The cat, but your spouse,
Yeah.
your kids and things like that.
Yeah.
And of course, a lot of men I see who think they've been dudded by life after trying to do the right thing wind up getting referred for some form of anger management as well, which is always, in my experience, just an expression of anxiety and long-standing anxiety and stress. So we need to be careful about those sorts of things as well.
Okay. And for those of our audience who are still working, do you have any advice on work-life balance?
Yes, find it, make it.
Get some.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we need to be that active agent in our life. I see people just routinely working back an extra hour a day. Now, if you keep doing that, let's say you work an extra hour a day, 5 days a week. You're taking a voluntary 12.5% pay cut. And if your boss came to you and said, we're going to cut your pay by 12.5%, you go off like a frog in a sock. But we do it voluntarily to ourselves. And how do we measure life? Well, we measure life with time. You're X years old. But that has a big implication, because what it means is that how you spend your time is how you spend your life, literally. So, after this podcast, you and I are going to be, half an hour closer to death. So we need to think that this was a worthwhile way to spend a little chunk of our life. But if you're doing an extra hour a day, 5 days a week over decades, you're kind of giving away, 2 years of your life at the end of the day?
Yeah.
And I sometimes ask people, would you ever let me just come along arbitrarily and kill you 2 years earlier? No, of course you wouldn't. But that's kind of what we're doing to ourselves. And there's a wonderful old saying that I saw in a management book years and years and years ago, that no one has ever been lying on their deathbed wishing they'd spent more time at the office. But when you look at how you live, people live their lives, you would think the number one priority is work, and devoting your life to an organisation that isn't human and therefore can't care about you, and you might be loyal to it, but it's not going to be loyal to you because you're only employed to achieve a mission, make money, or for regulatory compliance or something like that. And then that all gets frittered away. You turn up late, you've got no time to do anything in the evenings. You give your weekends away and that sort of thing. And then before you know it, you wake up grey and or bald like me and wondering what's happened.
Yeah. Yes, okay. So get some work-life balance. So do you have any anxieties about what life might be like when you retire, if indeed you plan to retire?
I'm in a bit of a conundrum, actually, because I really, really, really do love what I do.
Yep.
And I think I'll just wind down, but I'm kind of expecting to keep going until I can't keep going anymore. Well, that's what I would like to anyway. And, intersperse some travel and things like that. But I'm very lucky. I am doing something that I really do love.
Yep.
So for me, it's not work as such. But yeah, I'm certainly anxious. I've had a couple of little health scares over the last 12 months or so, and that's got me wondering about, how long will I have and will it be a healthy retirement and things like that. One of the nurses, when I went into hospital, and I thought it was, it was significant, but from my perspective, relatively minor. It was a life speed bump. Said to me, "So do you have an advanced health directive?" And I went, "No." She said, "Well, you need one. You need one because this could have gone the other way." And I went, "Right, all right then." I didn't know it was that serious. So I guess it's not a fear of the unknown. I mean, I've got that. I remember when I was studying here, they said that, everyone feels their age until they're 32 or something, and then you feel like you're 32 for the rest of your life until your health goes. Yep. So I'm probably feeling 35 right now. But hoping my health won't go that quickly.
But yeah, the Advanced Health Directive, it's not even just for people who are, starting to face health issues. I mean, my daughter, who's a nurse, she suggested we do it before we went travelling. And she said, you might be perfectly healthy now, there are no health scares, but you never know when an accident can happen. And it's the same situation, and you need someone else to be making those decisions for you. So we all should be considering that. So talking about having a long and happy life, do you have any lessons you've learned about giving yourself the best chance of one?
Something that I obviously did my PhD in positive psychology, which is something that I've kept an interest in. And I forget where I found it now, but one of the luminaries in the field figured out that people are happiest when they are growing into something. So you need to kind of enjoy the process of going from incompetent to some degree of competence. And he came up with an idea that is basically you do something each year that you've never done before and just enjoy that process. So that's what I've tried to do, probably all for over 10 years now. And it's never let me down. Now, I haven't always changed it dramatically. So a few years ago, I decided to take an acting course.
Okay.
And that was like a general stage acting course, which was absolutely fantastic. But that led me down the path so I performed in Fringe for a few years, met a whole bunch of different people I never normally would have met. And then I went down a film acting course and things like that. And similarly, I've really gone down the rabbit hole with photography. So at the moment, I'm doing deep space astrophotography,
Yes, I've seen many of your
which
pics.
is
I'm very impressed with them.
very challenging. And of course, it appeals to the geek in me.
Yep. And it takes an inordinate amount of patience, I imagine.
Yes, but it's the processing is incredible. So those images of mine you would have seen on Instagram, they would be a minimum of 1,000 images stacked on top of each other to get all the detail out of them and then make the noise go away. And then it's the processing to bring out all the beauty of the nebula or whatever it is that you're looking at. So, But, going down those rabbit holes, doing something different, learning about yourself. I mean, I've turned out to be able to do things, not very well. I'm not claiming I'm good at them, but I never thought I'd do them. Yep. But if you told me 20 years ago that I'd be on stage at Fringe making stuff up for an hour in a long-form comedy improv show that I produced, I would have just laughed at you. But, and that was a wonderful part of the process. So the people I was studying acting with knew that I loved Fringe and I wanted to be in it, but I lacked talent and that sort of thing. And they said, and they just banded around me and said, well, we'll help you. We'll just put on a show. And that, that sort of social engagement was absolutely wonderful. And they're all great people. And, by and large, the people I've met down the artistic path have been really, really wonderful, supportive people. And then I've got the ultra nerds and geeks on the astrophotography side and things like that. And I've been pursuing, my artistic side. I've been trying to learn how to draw and things like that. So, it's been good. So pick something new, surprise yourself each year.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think we've come to just about the end, but I was wondering if you have any other pearls of wisdom for those of us entering the last third of our lives.
Oh, I would really focus on something that I said before, which is life is time and time is life. Don't fritter things away an hour at a time, a day at a time, or a week at a time. I think I'm just thinking of one client in particular now who expected to live a very long, happy and healthy life and passed away tragically, I think only about 2 weeks after he retired.
Oh, now, I hear stories like that and I shudder.
Yeah, but he had planned well. I saw him for obviously different issues for quite a while and I guess, had a range of challenges and where he'd neglected himself over the years, but he did have it figured out and he was really looking forward to it. And then I got a call from his wife letting me know that he'd passed away. He won't be attending his appointment today. Gosh, wow. So, life really does turn on a dime. So really, really value your life. Figure out what you want to do with it. Don't give it away to things that don't care about you and don't really mean anything at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And be imaginative.
Yeah.
Have fun.
We've only got one life, so
absolutely. Yeah.
Use it well.
Yeah. It doesn't matter what you think happens after you die. Whatever this is the only shot we've got at it. So, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming in today, John.
Thank you.
Sharing all of that with us, and especially this whiskey as well. So let's turn the mic off and enjoy it a bit more.
My pleasure. Good to see you. Cheers.
Okay, Okay, well, that was really good. John's certainly got a lot to say, and he's very sensible about the things that he said, but he's experienced a lot of people. What did you think, Harrie?
Very relatable, mate. Every time I listen to him, I think there's so much good stuff in there, and he coined such a good phrase. In fact, he even said he came up with his own phrase, or coined a phrase, which was the socio-cultural imperative, I think is what he called it.
Yeah.
Which was, I think. Well, I know for me, tend to identify with it a little bit. I try not to. That there's always this, I guess, an anxiety that you feel you haven't achieved what you always thought you were going to achieve just by existing, basically, and doing what you think is the right things all the way through the life. You make your choices, and right or wrong, and then you redirect and make another choice, and you feel that under that imperative that, okay, you've done all the right things, you haven't pissed people off, you've done, you should have accumulated all these things, and yet I look and I think, well, why haven't I got all these things? And I can see how people could get angry and say, well, I'm angry about this because I haven't got it, I'm now at this stage, what am I going to do?
And also for those people who did manage to get all that stuff,
and they're still not happy.
Yeah, they think, oh, I'm still not happy. Why is that?
Yeah, that's right. And I do love the fact that he says that's the most important thing. So I don't know if it makes you happy, but there's other things about it as well. But the other thing that I really, really noticed when I listened to this, it was like listening to my father's life story. And obviously you've known my dad for a long time as well, so you've seen all of this. But my dad started work doing something that he had to do to make money. It wasn't being an accountant. I think he finished school probably a lot earlier than he should have, as was the case back then. I think he probably did his year 10 or whatever the equivalent was, and that was it. Maybe even less than that. He went out and then ended up working for an oil company at that stage, and then getting into the personnel management side. He was personnel manager, and as part of that job he was doing quasi-psychological tests. I mean, he wasn't a psychologist, but he was doing the 16 PF tests, I think they were called, 16 personality factors tests. And I remember him doing it on me when I was younger, saying all these things I was good at, which was nothing I ever did in my career, but I seemed to try and do a lot of it outside my career. And he developed, I guess, a thirst or a hunger for knowledge and learnings and being educated. So he went back and studied. And he was, as I say, doing the 16 PF test, which is probably very similar to that test that John was talking about, where he was in the empty office space, and after answering all these questions, they identify your personality traits. And Dad, through doing that, started getting interested in psychology, and he then went back and studied night school to do his equivalent leaving, whatever it was, and then went back to university and studied psychology, and then ended up lecturing in psychology, as obviously John was doing. So it was very, very similar listening to John, and it rang true to what my old man used to talk about, and the same sort of path.
So John's obviously seen a lot of people who are unhappy, and he says that there's a lot of depression out there and a lot of anxiety, and if someone's also got a bit of low self-esteem or negative self-concept, it's a very toxic combination. But he also said, well, he wasn't just identifying a problem out there. He had some great ideas about what people could do to make sure that they have a happy retirement. And particularly, he says that those who've done well in retirement have managed to find some sort of meaning or purpose for their everyday life, which is a point we keep coming back to. And I think he said that a bucket list works well. But another thing was, find something you just like doing, and this can also help if you're lonely for whatever reason. It's very important to have a social group, and that if you go off and find something you like doing, then you're likely to find other people who also like doing that thing, and bingo, you've got something in common with them.
Well, something that I thought was fantastic as well, when he was talking about, I guess, what is it to be happy, and how do you become happy? What do you do to become happy? And it's not the asset chasing and the helicopters and everything else. He said people are happiest growing into something, and he said the process from being incompetent at something to some level of competence provides happiness. And that's what I love, the fact that he said a couple of things he said where it's just try stuff. You might be shit at it. You might not want to do it, but by doing the trying, doing something, you're actually becoming better and more happy, because you're actually identifying, we'll cross that one off this and I won't do that again. And even when he went back to, say, the planning, when you asked about planning for retirement, he said that's a wonderful thing, because your plan may not even come to fruition, but the fact that you've stopped to take a step back to look at yourself through a different lens and say, this is what it is, you're actually halfway there, because you're now actually taking the time to take in consideration and, what would he say, value your life, be imaginative, have fun. So the other thing that he said was, that don't do stuff like he said, half an hour a day or an hour a day extra work that you're doing because you think you're doing well. That's never ever going to help you in retirement. It's never going to help you be happy, and all you've done is sell your soul to the man.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to start living by that ethos and just saying, well, is this going to make me happier in retirement or happier in my later life, when you have a finite number of days, weeks and months and years, hopefully? Do what's going to help you be better at that rather than be better at what you're doing now.
Yeah. Oh, I love his comment about no one ever spends time on their deathbed wishing they had spent more time at the office.
No, that's right. Well, there are probably some people I can identify, which we talked about in previous episodes, who I won't mention again.
Yeah. No, so I think thank you very much, John, for all of that. I think there were some great lessons in what you said, and certainly resonated with both of us.
Very much so. Very much so.
Yep. All right, mate. Well, I think that's probably enough for today, and got a little bit of time left for us to enjoy a bit more of that Suntory.
Yes, and I'll see you on Sunday.
Yes, that's right. My daughter Stella is getting married.
Yes.
To her fiance Julian, and
wish them all the very best.
We're all looking forward to that. So congratulations to the two of them.
Yeah, congratulations, guys.
Okay, bye everyone.
See you. Bye.
It's the Whiskey Talk. It's written and produced by Craig Spielman and Harrie Swanson. All music is written and performed by Craig Spielman. The audio was recorded at The Wardrobe, Perth, Western Australia. We value your feedback about the show, especially any information you can provide on issues we've discussed that we can share with our listeners. We'd also love to hear any whiskey recommendations. Our email address is whiskytalking@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. We all benefit profoundly from more listening.